Thanks. Good morning. Let's just take a breath and lower our collective expectations for this morning. That's what I'm doing. I want to talk to you today about what's going on in this picture. This picture was taken a few weeks ago in Hiroshima, Japan, and you might not know it by the look on my face, or maybe you can tell, but I was melting down. I was having a collective physical and mental. I was hitting one of my lowest points, and it was really ironic because we were in one of the most beautiful houses I think I've ever been in, having one of the most beautiful meals I've ever been served, and I wasn't sure I was going to make it without embarrassing my husband and our hosts. But to tell you about that, I think I need to back it up a little bit. Like almost a year from now. So this has been the hardest year of my life. And maybe for lots of people. There are so many things happening in the world. And then in my life, here are some of the things that made it a tough year. About a year ago, I got COVID. Gave it to my husband. We were both really sick for a couple weeks, and we didn't get better. It lasted for him 6 months, and for me, almost a year. And I was like extremely congested for 6 months. My brain wasn't working. I would be in front of a room and I wouldn't be able to remember the words that I needed to say. I was so tired that I couldn't do the things that helped me mentally be okay, like exercise. I was lucky if I could walk the dog, and sometimes that would lay me out for a couple days. It was really intense. And we had a motorcycle trip planned to the coast, to ride down the coast of California in February. And we were like, we'll be better by then. And February came and it was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I was a little bit in denial until quite soon before the trip, thinking I was gonna pull out at the last second. And it just didn't happen. And so we changed our plans to go sit in the sun in California, and we changed it into a convalescent trip, basically. And we were like, we're not gonna do anything, we're gonna read books, and we're gonna totally lay low. And it helped, it made a dent, and it made me realize that I actually needed to take a medical leave from work because I was kind of half-assing my way through work, which I had enough credibility and kind of goodwill built up to do that, but after months, actually 2 people on my team in 1 week were like, do you think maybe you should get out of here for a little bit? So I went on medical leave for about a month and just rested. I came back from medical leave, and 4 days later, I lost my job. I got laid off in the big tech house cleaning or what have you, and I was in the 3rd round of layoffs. So I had lived through internally, if you've ever stayed at a place after layoffs, it became pretty bleak. And then by the time it was time for me to go, it actually felt like it was going to be okay, but it was still shocking. So here I was in not great health, and now I didn't have a job. And I had to kind of figure out what my next move was going to be. Meanwhile, our dear friends Mike and Eileen invited us to buy plane tickets for a trip to Japan, a motorcycle tour in September. And we were like, yeah, we'll totally be good by then. And they both speak Japanese fluently. They both lived in Japan for a long time. They have friends on the ground in the motorcycle, and they keep a sidecar in Japan so that they can go and tour. And they have friends in the sidecar community, and they had hooked up hosts for us. It was an unbelievable trip of a lifetime. So of course we said yes. We bought tickets and assumed that we would be good to go by the time it was time to go. In July, I launched my business. This is my logo that Rachel designed for me, and that was just like it was a really interesting. I got a lot of energy, I think, out of fear of I need to make this work, and just out of the excitement of doing something new. So that was a big push for me in July. Also in July, I fell down the stairs at our house, and I ended up with frozen shoulder. Has anybody ever had frozen shoulder before or heard about it? Frosho, we call it Frosho for fun. It is so terrible. It is like, basically I couldn't lift my arm more than this without excruciating pain. And they call it, I think in Chinese medicine, they call it something like middle-aged woman shoulder. So that's what you have to look forward to. And it can take a year to get better. And I just, I was in this place of not having been able to exercise I'm coming close to a year now, gained a ton of weight. I was already struggling with my own health. And then to be hit with this thing that was like hurting all the time, I just thought, are you fucking kidding me? How am I can't deal with this. Is too much for me to deal with. And then kind of beating myself up for feeling bad about it, as we do, right? We like pile on the pylon. So that happened, and then September gets close, and we're starting to think about going on this trip, and I was just I was like, we're going on the trip. I'm going to physical therapy. Physical PT is like, do you think maybe you should think about riding on the back of Rain's motorcycle instead of riding your own? And I was like, I'm not going to Japan without riding a motorcycle. Like, I need to do it. So September comes, and Wayne got COVID again. It was just like the hits keep coming, And I flipped out because I felt like if I get sick, my spirits are toasted. And we separated. I lived out in my office she shed for a while. We masked up in the house, and amazingly somehow, I didn't get COVID. Wayne got better. His sense of taste returned, which he was the most worried about for us heading to Japan. And we decided we were going to go on the trip. The thing that helped me the most during this year was to ask myself this question: what am I learning right now? What am I learning from the difficulties that I'm facing? Long COVID was a total ass kicker, and what it taught me about was what it's like to have a chronic illness, what it's like to feel like the world is passing you by because you can't keep up, what it's like to have to manage your life around a physical liability, the privilege of health that I've had for my whole life that I just didn't even know was such a great privilege. And then, losing my job teaches me all kinds of things about how I manage through ambiguity, how our life can change in the blink of an eye. I got an email overnight and they locked me out of all the systems. Like, your life just changes overnight. And Frozen Shoulder was teaching me about pain, and it was teaching me about there's a difference between chronic illness and chronic pain, and pain just demands your attention. No matter what's happening in your life, it's like, pay attention to me. I was listening to meditation podcasts about pain. I was doing everything I could do. But this question for me was really helpful because it was generative. So to ask this question, what am I learning through this, so that at least something is coming of this hardship for me. So we got on the plane. I think about us like walking through the airport. Wayne can't walk full speed because his lungs haven't quite recovered, and I'm like the one-armed wonder, and here we go to Japan to get on motorcycles for 3 weeks and go on this tour. There was a little bit of naivete, I don't know, but we were just hell-bent on going. I'm shoving all these pillows under my arm on the plane. I took a bunch of muscle relaxers, which really helped. And we go for this super long trip. This is like 3 days after we got there. This is 6 o'clock in the morning. We're getting ready to hit the road, and we're leaving at 6 because it's in the 90s, which it was for almost our whole trip, in the 90s, and like 5,000% humidity. So, and we are safety people, so we wear all of our gear all the time. So we were riding in all of our gear all of the time. So that's just like the underjob for this trip, is the heat that was brutal. A couple days before this, we picked up our rental bikes in Yokohama, which is outside Tokyo. And I will tell you that one of the scariest things I've ever done was pulling out of a rental shop on a bike I've never ridden before, a totally different kind of bike, in another country, on the wrong side of the road, with a frozen shoulder, in the rain. And Wayne and I have comms in our helmets, and I was like, I am totally terrified, but I'm just doing it. I'm doing it anyway. I'm doing it terrified. And so this is the morning that we left. Eileen was able to take pictures because she rode in the sidecar. So that was a pretty awesome thing that we have some pictures that she was able to take. But this is us just minutes after we left. And I'm the second one there. That's Wayne waving in the back. They put me in a sandwich to try to help keep me safe. I was just terrified. And mostly I was thinking, the irony of like being on this once in a lifetime, totally amazing trip, and then being like, I'm not sure I'm gonna make it. Like, am I gonna make it through this trip? And not wanting to disappoint anyone, not wanting to say that I needed things to change or I needed things to be adapted for me, because I knew that people had been planning this trip for months, and we had hosts all over the place getting ready for us. We had to stop like every hour to hour and a half so that I could numb ice my shoulder and like try to get it numb so that we could get going again. It wasn't a terrible thing to have to stop, because Japan's tollways have these amazing service areas that have restaurants that are better than any restaurant you've ever been to in your whole life. But we were slowed down by me and my ability to not ride for very long. We made our way first to the prefecture of Mie, and where we were honored guests at a sidecar rally with this Japan sidecar community. And this is dinner one night, and one of our local guests, this guy Ota-san, who's like a 70-year-old fourth generation acupuncturist who always has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Total character. But he comes up to me and he shows me his phone, and it's a Google Maps route. And it says 7 hours. And we had come here believing that we were going to have 2 nights at this place, and it was a hot springs resort. And I was just mentally like, you just got to get there. You just got to get there, and you'll have a day of rest, and you'll be okay. And he was like, tomorrow we're doing this. And I was just like, oh my God, a total meltdown at dinner that I thought I was going to get a day of rest, didn't get a day of rest. It was... There were lots of events like this where the people that were making plans for us were so excited that they kind of went overboard in a lot of their planning, and it felt like the rules of engagement in Japan are that you don't ever leave your guests with free time. Like it's rude. It's rude to leave your guests unattended. It's a lovely ethos, and it was super exhausting because we were booked every minute and we were moving almost every day. We decided that at that point that we would leave my bike at one of Ota-san's friends, and I would ride on the back with Wayne for a couple of days just to get a little bit of rest. And as we were trying to find the house, we were now traveling in a group of 2 sidecars and 2 motorcycles, and we had to turn around. And during the melee of turning around, I fell over and dropped my bike and wrenched my shoulder. And it was excruciating, and it fixed my shoulder. Just nuts, right? Like, it's totally nuts. I can't remember it happened that day, but all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I can actually move my arm. And so things got a little bit easier because I wasn't consumed by pain anymore. I was still exhausted and a little bit overwhelmed by the travel, but we no longer had to stop every hour. I mean, just the irony of like, the whole thing, it was so wild. This is everybody checking out the bike because I did some damage to it when I dropped it. And so this is everybody checking it out to make sure I'm going to be able to drive it when we pick it up a couple days later. It was this incredible trip. This is on the Noto Peninsula. The food was just bonkers. Like, if you have been there or heard about it, it's just bonkers how good the food is. I'm not a picture-taking person, and I couldn't stop because it was just so beautiful. The aesthetic. This is up on the square plate. That's blowfish, which is poisonous if you don't cook it right. They give it to you, and then they give you your own fire, so you cook it yourself. And it's like, good luck with that. And that was breakfast. just wild. Fermented squid. No thanks. Yeah. I passed on that. So we had this incredible trip. And I think one of the things that makes travel so great, interesting, and exhausting is that things that are usually easy for your brain become really difficult. This is what we faced when we had to get gas. And like, this was the gas pump, and it was just like, what? And it would take both of us. Wade and I would be like, okay, you ready? We can do this. And we'd pull out Google Translate, and like, you're trying to, and every gas station is different. There was no consistency. So that part just, I think, adds to the fun and excitement. It also adds to the exhaustion of making your way and traveling in a new place. Buying a cup of coffee is like this giant thing, and doing laundry. It's like, what? How do we, what? So the trip went on. It was totally lovely. When we get to Hiroshima, we're told again, we're gonna have 2 nights. We're staying in a super swanky place, 2 nights there. It's gonna be awesome. And we get there, and our host meets us, and he's like, yeah, just 1 night. Tomorrow, we ride 5 hours somewhere else. And I was just like, I'm gonna die. So this night, we were in the hotel room, and I melted down in the hotel room because I didn't feel like I could do it publicly, and was just like, I need to be able to take care of myself, and then I was like, okay, let's go to dinner. Like, I had to, my meltdowns had to be brief and private because of the circumstances of the trip. And so this night at this dinner, it was just it was my lowest point of the trip, and all I was doing while this amazing thing was happening around me was secretly plotting if I could buy a plane ticket home from Hiroshima and go see my dog and my bed, because I was just physically spent in a way that I don't know if I've ever been because of the year that led up to this day. And I made it through that night, and I went to bed, and we continued on our trip, and we saw incredible things, and it was just a total once-in-a-lifetime trip. And then 2 days before we were going to return our bikes, we were about a day and a half's ride from the rental shop. We were traveling on the freeway in the fast lane, and my bike threw a bearing in the rear wheel and broke down and started shuddering uncontrollably while I was traveling at high speed. And I thought I was going to die, and it was totally terrifying. And we got ourselves off the road, and I just shut down. Like, it was all I could do to keep my shit together and get off the road, and then I just shut down. Wayne and Mike dealt with the rental bike place. We ended up leaving the bike on the side of the road. I got on the back with Wayne again, and we continued our travel. We went to a service area, and I locked myself in a bathroom, and I just started sobbing, and I was like struck with my own mortality and with the danger of everything that we were doing, and with everything that I'd been through in the weeks before, and not wanting to continue, like just wanting to be done, but not really having a choice about it, and still not wanting to upset other people with how much I was struggling. It was a tremendous struggle for me. And I think what just kept helping me, and what helped me through this trip, what helped me through this last year, is this question, like, what am I learning? And on this trip, I learned so many things, but I learned that I can do more than I think I can do, and I can withstand more than I think I can withstand, and that even though I was like beating myself up through that whole trip, as I got to build this talk, it was therapeutic and so helpful to be like, I made it through that. Like, I just kept going. I did have a choice, and it didn't maybe feel like I had a choice, but I did have a choice, and I kept going. And so my current thinking about endurance, which is, a couple weeks out from this intense thing that I just went through, but some thoughts I want to leave with you are around, has anybody heard of type 2 fun? I don't know where this is from, but the lifeguard at the pool, she was like, oh, that's type 2 fun. I was like, what's that? And she said, it's the kind of fun where it gets more fun the farther away you get from the thing into the future. Like, looking back at it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this trip was totally type 2 fun. Some things we have a choice about enduring, and some things we don't. I didn't have a choice about long COVID. I didn't have a choice about frozen shoulder. I had a choice on the trip, although it might not have felt like I did, but we're always choosing what we're gonna keep doing and what we're not gonna keep doing. And just being able to discern when you have a choice, even if it's a choice you don't feel like making, I think can be helpful. the support of everything, of others, like having Wayne's voice in my helmet all the time and telling me, encouraging me and telling me I was doing great and telling me to turn off my blinker that I always left on because, because my bike turns it off automatically here. But just recognizing where you have people that you can rely on. And I think some of the sidekicks for endurance that help, one is presence. I had a friend say to me, it's hard to endure when you're busy thinking about how much more you have to endure. And so I would do that to myself where I future trip and I'm creating anxiety out of something that hasn't happened yet, but being able to back it up to, am I doing it right now? Am I okay right now? Okay, I'm okay right now. I'm gonna keep going. And then this idea, reflection, which I've talked about multiple times, but what am I learning so that you're pulling out the meat or the juice or whatever's good about the thing that's hard. And discernment, like where do you have choice that you may not realize that you do? Anna, a couple months ago, left the room with inquiries about pride, and I really liked that idea. So I wanted to leave you with just a few ways to think about endurance. It's that same question, what am I learning? But what have you endured that has enriched your life or work? What are you currently enduring that is no longer serving you? A different way to frame that question that I really like is, what is the yes that I no longer mean? So those are some of the questions I would leave you with. When I told Rachel I wanted to grab this theme this summer, I thought it was because I wanted to talk about this dead white guy. And I will always talk about him. So because this is Ernest Shackleton, and the story of the Endurance is one of the most amazing survival stories of all time and one of my top 5 books. So definitely read it. But I thought I would tell you a little bit about my own journey instead. That's it.